Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. So this week we have managed to get Scott Steele on. Scott reached out after the Adam McBurney interview and was his story is phenomenal to tell. Obviously had to retire quite early on in the game, and now we want to see how his exit from the game has been managed and where he is now with his rugby, and obviously if he's continued. Scott, really appreciate your time, mate, and thanks for coming on. Obviously joining us from sunny Scotland by the looks of it at the minute.
No, it's great to get on, great to chat. We had a bit of technical issues this morning, but good to get by that and get on and chat. Yeah, I saw your interview, Adam. Obviously his story of going from, I was at Edinburgh when he was there, and then hearing how it's been over in his new sort of chapter of his rugby career and seeing the differences and everything like that. I thought it was a real good insight, and it's been really interesting to chat to him with that. Rugby clubs can differ even in the same league, just different environments, but him going over there, it's a completely sort of new experience for him, and something that he'll pick up a lot of things, and things probably could be done differently and a bit better, but he's the sort of guy that just goes into stuff head on, so it was great to hear.
Yeah, really, really great guest, and as you said, he just grabs it, carries on. He's obviously had his ups and downs, as most rugby players had, but he's actively trying to change his future as well. So it's great to get him on. Obviously, for those that aren't aware, Scott, obviously you retired quite early on. You're 30 when you retired, correct?
Yeah. So just 30. So that season I was turning 31 in July after my contract. So 30, 31, a bit earlier than I'd obviously anticipated or I'd hoped.
So obviously, before we get to that element and potentially the doom and gloom of the end of your pro career, what you enjoyed you went up and down the sort of the leagues. You played a bit. Obviously, you managed to pull on the Scottish jersey as well, mate. So for those that aren't aware, can you explain where you were, what you'd done, and how we're now sat here talking about this?
Yeah. So grew up in Dumfries, southwest Scotland. Did all the age group stuff through Scotland, and then in my last year of school, I got a scholarship to a boarding school up in Edinburgh, Merchiston. So that was the first sort of step where it was, right, this could hopefully lead to somewhere, going into more of a full-time environment, if you will, training a lot more than you would with a local club, or sort of not just a Tuesday, Thursday. There was a lot more rugby. It was better coaching, and it was a great setup. So that was when it sort of professional was. I didn't really think about it too much before that, but got that opportunity, which was great. And in my last year, I was hoping to get a contract with Glasgow or Edinburgh, or Scotland Sevens. Obviously, in Scotland, it's not like England where there's lots of teams and you've got sort of the Premiership and then the Championship below and even National One. So they've got quite a lot of players, and not many of them get the opportunity because there's not many opportunities at pro level. So I didn't manage to pick up a contract, which was sort of a bit of a disappointment. Was the first sort of test of resilience and saying, where do I go from here? What do I do? Had a club team lined up, Watsonians in Edinburgh, which I was sort of hoping to play with and then sort of get back into the pro system. But just through playing with someone at under 18 Scotland, managed to get a trial down at Leicester Tigers. Went down there for 2 weeks. They just had Christoph Ridley, the referee, the number 9. He was playing at the time, had another shoulder issue, so he had to retire. And they basically were running low on scrum half. So I just went down for 2 weeks, trained pretty well there. And off the back of that, played in the JP Morgan Sevens, and even though we got absolutely smashed every game and I got stepped loads of times, they sort of saw something in me. They sort of saw something, and I managed to get a 1-year academy contract there. Ended up playing a few games, again through injury and the likes of Ben Young's going away international, and that was just a really lucky opportunity. Managed to play a few times off the bench, and off the back of that got another couple of years sort of as a first team player at Leicester. So 3 years there, and then moved away to London Irish to try and get some more game time. I was on loan at Loughborough, playing in National One, which was good. Playing any sort of rugby is good than just sitting there holding a bag. at training, which is pretty depressing. You're a rugby player, but you're not actually playing any rugby. So a few guys had went to London Irish from Leicester before me, and they'd played. So I thought, right, this is sort of make or break. If I go to Irish and I don't play, it's not going to be great to try and jump back up, or probably have to drop down to Championship. But luckily, went there, worked hard, coaches liked me, became a starter in my first year, and I ended up playing, I think it was like 30 odd games in my first year. So I was delighted with that, how that went. Spent 6 years at London Irish. In that time, we got relegated twice, came back up twice. So that was an experience, going from Premiership to Championship, going from getting beat every game in the Premiership and then winning every game in the Championship. It's very different. So did that, and then I was expected to get another contract at Irish. I sort of saw myself playing there until I finished. I loved the club. They gave me my chance, so I was really happy to stay there. But came a time where it was to do with salary cap fitting and budgeting and all this sort of stuff. So I got let go from them, which was really disappointing. Managed to pick up a academy contract when I was 27, so a big pay cut to go to Harlequins, and then it got cut again because of COVID cuts. So I think I was on something like 37.5 grand was the lowest they could cut you to. So that's what I was on after I'd been earning over 6 figures at Irish, because I'd been there so long and sort of worked my way up. But I had nothing else. I was like, that's it. So I had a bit of savings that I was able to do, like living in London. It's not the cheapest, so managed to do that. But then after 7 games of playing for Harlequins for the first time, I was in the Scotland stuff. So it was the least amount of money I'd been on for ages, but then that was the most successful part of my career. So played with them, went on and played for Scotland, got into 3 camps, an autumn series, 6 Nations. So I ended up playing 4 games in the 6 Nations, and then got picked to go on the summer tour, which then got cancelled because lads got COVID before we headed out to play Georgia and stuff. So 3 years in total at Harlequins, a lot of injury issues in my second and third season there, and then managed to get a contract up at Edinburgh, which is a bit of a miracle because my medical history wasn't great. Luckily, the medical wasn't too intense and got through it. Phoned up my dad straight away. I was like, I passed my medical. He was like, no way. I was like, yeah. So I was trying to push for a 2-year contract with them, but I would have felt quite bad if I actually got that in the end, because I turned up, did pre-season. It was a long pre-season because the World Cup was on. I'd had reoccurring hip issues, and it was, I needed a hip resurfacing, so I needed a metal hip put in. So that was a pretty big op, and I sort of made up my mind early that I was going to retire after that, more because of the other injuries. I'd had back surgery, I'd had hernias that I'd kept getting niggles with, just stuff that's shoulders and ankles, reoccurring injuries. At the time you get better, but then later down the line it gets a bit sorer. So it was more of my whole body wasn't feeling great, and I thought, playing with a metal hip, I wasn't the quickest anyway. I'm not going to be quick with a metal hip. My box kicking was all right back in the day, but it's really hard to manage that. You need to practice it a lot, but if you can't do that, or if you do practice, it's going to probably cause more problems with my hip. It was a real tough balancing act. I remember being at Edinburgh and the coach was saying that you need to, like, all the 9s need to be practicing their kicking more. I was like, if I practice my kicking more, my hip's going to be more jacked up, then I can't train as well and I can't play. So I thought, it's pretty stressful when it's your job and you're trying to prove that you can do stuff, but you're basically hiding the fact that you're struggling with injury. So decided after that season that I would step away. Got a job lined up, and it was quite a good year in terms of I had a bit of time to sort of figure that out and get stuff sorted with that. So that's a quick snippet of my rugby career. A lot of ups and downs, as you said, but overall, absolutely loved it.
Was the aim always to be a pro player? When as a kid, did you always say, I actually want to become a pro, or was it just, as you said, you kind of were in the right place, right time, and the opportunity presented itself? Or
I'm really not sure. I definitely don't think it was, I want to be a pro player, because that would have been, I would have had that in my mind the whole time. But there was definitely a point when it was, I think, like representative stuff at Scotland, when you sort of sit around, you realise, right, well, I'm thought of as the best player at under 17s, and the best group of players at under 17s or 18s. You sort of go, well, it was only then that I really sort of started to click. I played football a lot growing up as well, and was pretty good at that. And it got to a stage where I sort of, it was a bit more travelling for the football. I played up in Kilmarnock, which was an hour and 40 minutes away from, so I'd have to like leave straight from school. Dad or one of my other mates that was playing, his dad would take us up, and then away days it would be up to Glasgow and Aberdeen and Inverness. Like, it was, your whole weekend was like taken up, and that was from sort of 13 to 16. And I was still managing to sneak the odd rugby game in on a Sunday when I could, if it worked out with the schedule, which the football coaches ended up hearing about, and they weren't too happy. But yeah, so when I sort of knocked that on the head, more just because I wasn't enjoying it. I enjoyed playing football, but there wasn't, it was basically in the car up there, play straight down. Wasn't getting much time to really socialise with the lads or anything like that. If I was living in Glasgow or Kilmarnock, it would have been a different story, I'd say. But it was only when I knocked that on the head and then played the sort of age group stuff that I thought, well, I've got a chance here. But it wasn't my be all and end all. I sort of wanted to, had it in my sort of aim to go to university and do PE teaching. That was sort of my goal. So my dad did that and my brother did that. So it was never, it wasn't one of these stories where you hear guys go like, I was all in on this, it was everything. It wasn't really like that. And I think, if anything, it probably helped me, because it sort of takes the pressure off a bit if you've got something else lined up and you're playing for all the right reasons. And if you have a bad game or you get injured, it's not the end of the world, sort of thing.
Nice. So obviously, PE teacher then. Have you actually ended up being a PE teacher? Is that where you've ended up, or is that still on the back burner as another backup at the end?
Yeah. So, not a PE teacher, but funnily enough, I've ended up working with a company that goes into secondary schools and works with sort of senior kids in the last couple of years at schools. And it's working more on their sort of meta skills, they call it, soft skills, social skills, to build their confidence, basically to get them sort of geared up to go into the real world, to go into jobs and sort of have them people skills. So there's a lot of crossover from sport, and it's also been handy having sort of my dad and my brother who are used to teaching to ask their side of things, because it's quite intimidating actually going into a secondary school and sitting down in front of kids that don't have a clue who you are. They don't particularly care what you're about to say. You know, you go in there and they're just looking up, they're not even paying attention. You're going, right, okay. So it's been a real steep learning curve, but something now that I've got to grips with. And I'm
pretty ruthless kids, aren't they? If you've got no attention, you soon find out pretty sharpish.
Yeah, they don't even pretend to listen. Don't even pretend to listen. Don't even hide their emotions. Just if they're bored, they're like, see you later, mate.
How much is obviously the rugby values that we all love and sort of embrace? How much do you think that's made that role easier, trying to pass those soft skills across to those kids that do want to listen to you rather than watching out the window?
I do slowly win them over. It could take weeks and weeks, but they do eventually start listening. It is huge, and I always thought, whilst I was playing rugby and you heard people talk about transferable skills from pro sport into, and to be honest, I was like surely it can't be that. Like, it can't be that good, or it's only in the person's interest that's saying it that it's going to be, there's so many transferable skills. So I sort of was going into it, I was like, I think I'm just going to have to learn this and it'll be sort of brand new and it'll be different. But to be honest, there is loads to take away, and it's more stuff that you've picked up from habit than you're intentionally knowing, right, this is about teamwork and collaboration or sort of respect and all this sort of stuff. It's just actions that you've watched other people older than me in my rugby career or coaches sort of set out a structure, and you just do it by sort of habit and behaviour, and then you step away and you go into a different environment and you realise that there's people that are not used to that and very different backgrounds. So it has been a real eye-opener to sort of take a step back and really break down the sort of values of rugby and how that sort of can help, not just rugby, but all sports can help people in different situations and sort of build them to get more confidence and basically become a bit more comfortable within who they are, but also able to help each other and sort of not make it just, because I think kids these days that they're a bit intimidated about being judged. It's a massive thing. So talk about being judged in a rugby environment. If you go in and you'll get told straight away if you're a bit cocky or you think a bit too highly of yourself, but in a way it sort of brings everyone down to the same level, and then you go from there and no one's going to slag anyone off for working hard. Like, that's the bare minimum. So that has been a lot of things that I actually look back on now and I think, all right, okay, that's not the norm for someone that's not been in a professional environment or any sort of sporting environment.
Yeah, exactly. What's most of the schools you go to, do they embrace rugby? Because I know it's a lot of school especially in the UK, most regions they can't cover it because of the lack of teachers, lack of knowledge, etc. Is it still pretty well embraced in Scotland, or is it sort of faded out towards the push towards football like most easy options?
Yeah, it's I think it's pretty similar in Scotland compared to England anyway, in terms of the private schools are all very much rugby heavy. They've got the resources. People will send their kids to a school because it's known for its rugby program and stuff. Schools that I work in, they're just state schools, some of them. So I work down in the Scottish Borders, which is filled with towns that are proper rugby towns. So that they still have it, but it would still probably be more aimed towards the clubs than the schools themselves. Some of them have got schools rugby programs which are really good. The SRU try and help out by putting development officers in schools as well. But overall, I think the availability, it's just school. It's dependent school by school. There's not a real push for it overall. In Edinburgh, in Glasgow, like you said, it'll be football. It'll be the main sports for the state schools because it's easier to do and sort of numbers and involvement and stuff like that. But there has been over the last couple of years a few schools that have became state schools that have became schools and try to push it as well. But I think it's quite tricky because you get guys that go to these schools and then as soon as they leave school, it's ultimately I want to play for a better team, and they'll sort of move away from that sort of pathway. So it's a hard one to get right, especially in Scotland with only 2 pro teams. It's quite a tricky one.
Do you think that is a limitation? Because obviously Wales are probably going through the rebuild of, there's rumblings that they might reduce from 4 to 2. Do you think there's the capacity for Scotland to have more than 2 teams? And would that make that a better availability for the development, or is 2 teams probably where Scotland sit and you get the best available around?
Yeah, I probably think unfortunately it is between 2 and 3. I don't think they would have enough to really make it. They obviously tried it. I don't know when, like a long time ago. The Border Reivers, they tried to give that a go, but I think it is unfortunately that, especially with the amount of kids playing it and coming up, there's not enough to sort of go into these teams. They would probably have 2 decent teams and then a third team that would be able to compete. I think it's been quite interesting watching how Italian rugby have went around it in terms of Treviso. They've sort of stacked that, put a lot of investment into that, and then using Zebri as almost a development. So that's like mainly all Italian guys and a lot of young guys. And they picked up a few wins last year, but like they've almost been like, right, that's where you'll go, you'll learn, it'll be difficult, and then you could maybe, I don't know if they'll move their guys across, but if they did that in Scotland, you would end up basically with just a Scotland team, bar a few guys that are playing abroad, say at Glasgow, and then you could use the Edinburgh team as a development. But I think they've probably got too many good players to really do that. So they are sort of stuck in this tricky sort of way. But I think the best way for Scotland to go around it is almost try to promote guys to go and play elsewhere, so there's more opportunity for guys to come in. So the likes of Finn going and playing at Bath and making $1 million a year. So you don't have to pay. Yes, they don't have control of when he plays and stuff, but if he's fit, he's going to play. It gives an opportunity for someone else at Edinburgh or Glasgow to come in and play. When they had Duhan van der Merwe, he went down to Worcester, and then when they brought him back, I thought, that's just a lot of money that you're paying for someone to come back that's going to play for Scotland regardless, and could be a young winger at Edinburgh that's sort of stopped the pathway there. So it's a real tricky one to get right, and there's people obviously a bit more switched on of how it all works than me, but it's something that I would promote guys to, come through the ranks at Glasgow and Edinburgh once they're sort of seasoned internationals. They've got that sort of ability, then let them go and make their money elsewhere, and then they can bring other guys.
Well, obviously, while France are throwing the money around in their leagues as well, they've basically got 4 pro divisions over there, haven't they? So they've clearly got something there. And as you said, like, if you can bring more players through to be developed and those players are still available for the international setup, I don't see the need to keep them. Like, I get, it's nice to have them playing in your own teams and like the attachment to fans, but you can't bankrupt a league for the sake of, or a couple of teams just to keep players. It's like the Welsh have struggled. Obviously, they've done the 60 cap rule. As soon as you hit 60 caps, you can go and play abroad, which is fine. But England have got a plethora of players to pull on. Like, you've got Jack Willis absolutely tearing up the French leagues, winning titles upon titles, and he obviously, because he's there, he's not getting called back. But then you've got the Curry brothers. We've got plenty of options to back that up. Whereas, as you said, like Italy, and obviously Wales and Scotland, they've got to branch out a little bit more, because at least even Ireland have got 4 competitive provinces, really. Like Ulster flit and choose whether they're competitive sometimes, and obviously Connaught have a good season, bad season, but Munster and Leinster have got such a depth of squad, and casually go and get Rico Ioane on, and like the the Barrett brothers, like they've clearly got something right over there, haven't they? So there's plenty to learn.
It's a real tricky one to get right, and I think, like you say, in England, you've got such a pool of players to pick from, but you've also got good national leagues at National 1, National 2 Championship. There is somewhere for young players to go, and a lot of them aren't going to go straight into the Premiership, and so it's that sort of in between where Scotland, we don't have that. I don't know what the Welsh Premiership in terms of the clubs game there's like. I know it used to be pretty strong. In Ireland, I know that their club game's pretty strong as well. So, but in Scotland, the drop off between playing at top club level and then going into professional, it's too much.
That's the thing. Like, I've had a few Irish lads on. I was in Lisbon at the weekend. I was chatting to a few of them. It's all amateur though below, and there's like, you might get called up as a bag boy for a little bit to go into a Leinster camp, but there's no clear path there either. Really good top quality level players, but no path in. A lot of the Welsh lads are anything below the regions. There's no connection between the regions and the amateur teams any longer either. So it's like you're lost there. And then when you've got the WRU spending 60 grand a year on daffodils or whatever it was when it come out the other day, and then now they've gone and bought Cardiff Blues to try and save them, but now we're going to cut 2 other. It's just, I think a lot of it, as we keep tapping it on, is it's at the top that's broken. It's the bit underneath we can't figure out. So it's difficult. Obviously, we talked just before you come on as well. You're still playing the game. You went to your local club. How's club rugby going for you over there?
So it's quite a strange one. So I had a job sorted out in Glasgow. I live in Edinburgh, so when I finished, I had a job sorted out in Glasgow in recruitment. So I got sort of signed up there, and one of my mates said, you should maybe come down and maybe do some coaching or play if you fancy it. And I thought, okay. Went down, and the job that I was in then isn't the job I'm in now, so I changed jobs and moved back to Edinburgh, but I'd already sort of settled into that club, Glasgow Hawks, and there was a restructuring of the leagues, so they were trying to cement a place in the top flight because they were basically cutting 3 got relegated rather than 1 going down and 1 coming up. So it was an important year for the clubs to try and stay in this league, because to get back up next year would be tough. So I went there, and I didn't really know how many games I'd play or how my hip was going to feel. And I just really liked the idea of going to play club rugby, because I missed out on that sort of going down to Leicester and doing pro stuff. So I went and did it and absolutely loved it. Boys were great. Got loads of chat whilst I was playing. Guys obviously knew that I used to play pro, and giving me special treatment and all that kind of stuff. And I absolutely loved it. We weren't sort of touted to be one of the better teams in the league. Staying up would have been good for us. And ended up playing, I think, 16 games last year. And then we stayed up on the last day of the season as well. So that was a good relief and a good buzz. So just started the pre-season now. I've sort of stepped up to be player coach. So I'm going to help the backs do sort of assistant coach stuff there. So it's a real good setup. They've gotten a few more guys that are sort of dropped out of the academy system at Glasgow. So it's just been getting into that, and I've absolutely loved it. I've loved how much these boys love it, even though obviously they're not getting paid. How passionate they are. I love how sort of times it's not the best rugby in the world, but it's just whatever you have to do to win. Like the pitches obviously can be an absolute shamble at times. Weather conditions, the refereeings,
a big drop
as well. The officiating's not the best, so that's been quite hard to bite my tongue at times. But it's been great to get into that and to play. And I've found, in terms of talking about transition, going down and training and doing exercise when there's 30, 40 other lads in your training stuff is so much easier than trying to motivate yourself to go out and do a run or don't mind going to the gym by myself, but actually doing stuff that's, it's just boring. I find going out and doing a 5K or try to do something like that. Whereas if you're in a game and it's competitive, you're running around, like you're doing it without even really noticing.
So how have you found the transition out of pro sports? Like there must have been a time when you knew you retired in your head. You then announced it to everyone. How did that transit? Was it fairly easy because you'd already come to terms with it, or were you still, when it actually happened, sort of stood there, shit, what do I do now? How did that sort of work out for you?
It was when I announced that I'd already got the job lined up. So I'd had the job lined up maybe 6 months before in a recruitment company. So I had that lined up. So that made it easier in terms of that. A few other things, more circumstances. I was single. I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids. I didn't have that financial pressure. I've not bought a place yet, so I didn't have a mortgage that I needed to make a certain amount of money to sort of cover that. So I think a lot of the stresses that guys go through is, I need a job and it needs to earn me this much to be able to cover this and this and this. So that was one of the things that I didn't find that difficult, but the thing that I found really hard was getting into a routine or knowing what job I go into. Is this the right thing for me? Like I've never had that before. I was playing pro rugby. I loved it. Everyone told me how lucky I was to be in a pro rugby player. I would give my arm to play one game of pro rugby and all this sort of stuff. And you've got the best job in the world. And a lot of time when you're in it, and it's hard to realise that. But stepping away now, I'm like, Christ, I lived the dream. It was great. I loved it. So then coming away from that and being like, is what I'm doing now the right thing for me? Where's the progression in it? Like all this sort of stuff. I ask myself questions that I never asked before, and that's the thing that I really struggled with. I'd be like learning a new career in recruitment, and I did it for, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks, and it was so much information to take on and trying to do. And one day I was just like, this is not for me. I'm not wasting any more time. I had a really honest chat with the boss, and I just said, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's a bit different. They were really good with me, and I literally think it wasn't the right job for me. So then I had to take a couple of months where I just networked and spoke to people and tried to think like, what? That's something that I speak to now with kids in school, and like it's really hard to know where to go in life. Why should I go down this route? Why should I go to college or uni, or why should I pick up a trade? And a lot of the time, kids sort of, I'm going to do this because my parents did this. And that's basically what I was going to do when I left school. It's just you see that and you go, yeah, okay, that seems all right. They've got a decent enough lifestyle. So it's a really hard one to get right. But coming off the back of playing 13 years pro, that was a question that I never when I was playing, even when it was really like shite and I was injured and stuff wasn't going well, I never was like, I might go and hand my notice.
Nah.
Like, that would never cross my mind, and like no one else in rugby, I don't think would really think about that. So that was the first time where I go like, I don't have to do this job. I'm not enjoying. But then it's knowing where the next opportunity is. So that was something that I really struggled with, and it sort of caught me by surprise because I had the job sorted. I was like, right, I'm fine. This will be all right. I'll do this. And I went in, worked hard, gave it my best shot, and then I just thought, this isn't. I'm not wasting any more time doing this. And then it's that having too many options. Like I couldn't go into anything. I could try to get into anything. I could go and study, and I could work somewhere, and I could do stuff. I was like, there's so many options out there. How do I know which one that I go for is not just right for me or like the right option? That was the thing that I really struggled with.
Do you think there's enough education within the game as well? Because you see a lot of players that are now trying to create other jobs alongside what they do as pros. They're setting up other businesses, etc. Is that because they've been educated, or they've just realised that rugby has a shelf life and they've been advised by the right people? Or do you think that is there actually like a liaison at clubs or at the Scottish RFU sort of thing to support those players that think actually what is life after rugby?
I think in England with the RPA, they've got a really good setup there. So they'll have an individual person it's all about, career development after. And I think a lot of the guys that are setting up businesses, that's the best way to do it is whilst you're playing. You can put as much time into it as you want. You can sort of get other people in to manage it if you want. But also for that fact, like I said, that you can understand whilst you're playing, this is something that I can see myself doing long term. You've sort of put that time in, you go, I like doing this, or I don't like doing this. With the RPA in England, they would do a lot of work experience days, so you would go in and get insights to different industries, different areas, and that was great. So I went into London one day, and we went into Central, and it was all about trading and sort of finance and stuff like that. And I went in there and I was like blown away by it, but I was like, this is not for me. And that's perfect. Like knowing that I don't have to waste any more time looking at that. That's like even going, this is not for me. Did other sort of bits and bobs of that, which is good in London because obviously so many opportunities there. So that was great. In Scotland, not so great in terms of my experience with the sort of transition stuff. I think I had a conversation with someone at the club, and they were only allowed to work with companies that sponsored the club. So if the club were making money off of it, they were allowed to work with them. So that really narrowed you down. And I was like, I don't want to go and work with a whiskey company or something like that, which was the opportunities. And I think in hindsight, it would have been good because I said, I'm looking to go into recruitment because I'd had this sort of chat with this company, or I had a few companies. I went in and did work experience for one of them. And I was asking the guys at Edinburgh, have you got any links there? And they were like, no, we don't. But if I'd been able to do that sort of more long-term than just a day, I probably would have found out then that it wasn't going to go for me. So I think that's something that in Scotland they definitely could resource better, is sort of making guys more aware that rugby's not going to last forever. If you've only got two teams up here, there's going to be a lot of players that don't quite make it. And also, especially in Glasgow and Edinburgh, it's big enough cities that they can sort of get out there and do stuff as well. So it's definitely an area they can improve.
Obviously it's another person they've probably got to pay to make available as well.
Yeah, it's a funding thing. Yeah, it's a funding thing again. It comes down to money again.
Obviously, if those clubs that are sponsored were able to just use a couple of quid here and there, that might make it a little bit easier rather than that. But
yeah,
it's obviously, as you said, though, you were at London Irish, one of many players that seem to have fell in love with that club. Like a lot of people, you always speak to players that played for them, and they have such a massive adoration for that club. And now that they're back in the realms of rugby, and obviously they sadly lost Eddie Jordan just before they're actually reborn. But what was it about that club that everyone seems to have fell in love with? Because everyone you speak to is just they're so happy that I think players are even tearing up their contracts to go back there. Everyone just loves it.
Quite a hard one to put your finger on, but first of all, the people away from the rugby side. So the guys that are involved with the chairman, sort of there, Kieran McCarthy, the guys that are around, like the groundsman staff, like the people in the office, all them, they were all so passionate about the club. And that's the first thing that I realised going in. They were so passionate about it. And these could be people at other clubs that you go in and they just go in, sit down, they don't speak to the players, they get on with the job. It's a normal 9 to 5 for them, and they just leave. Where they were all really passionate about the club. When I went in, they had a real buy-in to who they were as their identity. It was a bit of a bizarre meeting that they sort of said that they were a bunch of misfits. Like it was Brian Smith was saying it was like a bunch of misfits. We're a bunch of mongrels. Really, if we're being honest, a lot of us have tried to be at other clubs and we've not quite cracked it. He's like, myself included as a coach, but this is us, our way to show everyone else that they were wrong and we've got a point to prove. Talk about the fighting Irish, regardless if we win or lose, no one's going to have a game against us, and they'll come off the pitch thinking we've had an easy game there. That underdog sort of tag, it was class, and I loved it, and I bought into it straight away. And it was because a lot of clubs you go in and they either think that you go in and they're like, we're gonna finish top 4, we're gonna win this thing, and you're just like, every club in the league's saying that. Let's be realistic. Let's know who we are, work to that, know what our strengths are. They were like, we've not particularly got the biggest pack because we can't afford to pay the highest paid props and second rows, and we can't really get a squad together that's going to compete on that level. So let's try and move the ball as much as we can. Let's be as niggly as we can. Let's be as horrible to play against as we can, and go from there. So that was the reason that I really bought into it, and the way that because I had loads of different head coaches, but funnily enough, like my experience didn't particularly change because of them other people that were around them. And even when we went to the championship, the way they approached that could have been really difficult in terms of having internationals dropping down to play in the championship and all that sort of stuff. But it was always a positive sort of like, right, we're here now, let's make the most of it. We'll have a good time whilst we're doing it as well. And it was just that sort of attitude of, right, we're never beaten, which I loved.
Yes. It seemed to be like a family. Do you think that a proper rugby family is probably how the easiest way to describe it as well? So we previously had Ollie Curry on, who was there at one time. He sort of didn't quite get into the squad because few issues. Obviously, he was quite vocal as well. He's actually, funny enough, ended himself up in Scotland at the minute. But
I played.
He's a good character, isn't he? And some of the stories he was telling me of the crack den he had to share with Joe Cockanasinga was quite funny back in the day. So obviously, you were there probably during some of their best times and probably some of their worst times. What was probably your highlight when you were there?
It's a tough one because you say like winning the championship twice shouldn't be a highlight for a club like London Irish because they shouldn't be there in the first place. But that relief of getting them back, obviously great. And it was off the back of having a season where it felt like pre-season. throughout the whole year, which might sound a bit strange, but everyone was playing. They would rotate the squad all the time. So it was great in terms of morale. Young lads were getting game time because they knew, they basically knew the first year we went down, they're like, this is a real opportunity for us to bleed as many young guys as possible, to rotate the squad. Like guys like David Pace that had played 200-300 games for them or whatever, Topsy Ojo, these guys, like, they don't need to be playing for us every single week in the championship. We'll be all right resting them, and they'll love the fact that they get told, right, in 2 weeks' time you've got a week off, go away with the family, do what you want. I had a rotation with the two other nines that it was, if you were on the bench for 2 games, you would start for 2 games, and then you wouldn't play for 2 games. And the 3 of us would just do that. And it was brilliant. You could plan what you were doing on your 2 weeks off. You knew that if you started one game and you didn't have a good game, no matter what, you're going to start the next game, et cetera, et cetera. So it really took the pressure off. And it was quite bizarre because usually it's, right, you're all fighting against each other for game time and competition, but they sort of knew. The 2 guys were a bit older than me. I wouldn't say there was much between us in terms of, I would have liked to have thought that if it was an out-and-out starter, I would have been starting, but in realistic, like, there wouldn't be a massive drop either way. They were both really good players. One was an Aussie that they brought over from the Waratahs, and one Darren Allenton, a Welsh lad that had been Irish for ages, so they were like really experienced. So that was great, the way they worked that sort of thing. My first year when I went, my personal highlight was, so I moved from Leicester, where I was basically team bin juice, or just not playing, just always doing the reps for other guys. There was a lot of times at Leicester, they had such a big squad that I would be swapping in on the wing for the non-playing team because I couldn't even swap in at scrum half and get a game. I would literally be going around begging lads, like, do you want a rest? Like, do you want a rest? And we'll swap out. So, like, that's like no good for your development. Played a bit on loan at Loughborough, which was better. Well, I'd say better. It was basically, I was going to university and living the social life of the university, but not having to do any of the work. So, it's great fun, but not great for my rugby, I suppose. But the year that I moved, I started for Irish in the Premiership, the first game of the season, sort of kept my place, and we went back to Leicester, and we beat Leicester at Welford Road, and it was the first time in 11 years or something that Irish had been able to beat Leicester at Welford Road, because obviously they were the dominant team for so long and won finals all the year and stuff like that. And Irish were competing at times. They had been, obviously, they got to European rugby and stuff before I got there. They got to the top flight sort of stuff and got to the finals. But to go back there, that was a real sort of like, right, I've made the right decision here. A bit of a finger up to them for, because they wanted to keep me, but the way they went about it was, so basically I said I want to move to go to London Irish to play more, to get more game time. I'm not going to play here. And after that, it was, I would always get chucked in to catch the balls off the lineouts in the forward sessions. Usually they would rotate it every week, but it'd be like, oh, you London Irish, come over here, catch the balls, all this kind of stuff. I'd be going to get kit out the kit room, and they'd be like, yo, you won't be getting that at London Irish. They've got no money, they've got this and all that kind of stuff. And I was just saying, I'm like 21-year-old, I'm not playing. It's not as if I'm like one of your biggest players and I'm making this move and it's a big thing. I was just like, but I suppose they would just say it's a bit of fun, a bit of banter. But when it was going on for like 3 or 4 months, I was like, I cannot wait to get out of here now. I was like, please get me out. So that was great to go there and start against them and beat them. It was very satisfying, shaking some of the coaches' hands and the guys' hands that were giving me.
Sounds like a perfect revenge. We had Mario Picardi on the other day as well, the Spain captain, and he was at Loughborough, and he was originally at Wasps, and he highlighted how bad the treatment of potentially a lot of youth players are in English clubs. They're used as cannon fodder, bag boys sent on loan, then back the next day just to be bag boys again. Do you think that's, from your experience as well, pretty rife in certain clubs? I
would say, in my experience, it was at Leicester particularly. Yeah, it pretty bad. I think also, not to just point out Leicester, but back then it would have been maybe 13 years ago, it would have been different. I think player welfare is a bit better, a bit more treated now than it is then. So I think it would have been happening across the board. But I remember playing A-League games on a Monday night, play 70, 60, 80 minutes. Some guys, especially the forwards, they would play a full game on the Monday and then be turning up to a Tuesday where they would train for the full day and be doing full mauls and live tackle. And the guys that have played the night before would be literally sausage like bag there, and they'd be over the top of it, and guys would just be coming out and clearing them out, and you're going, "We had a game last night," and then he's doing this, and then you get the day off on the Wednesday, and then you would be on like loan or whatever on the Thursday, and the management of guys' minutes and where they were getting pulled from all different directions, and it was pretty full on in terms of that. But to be honest, I think even the first team players, the way that they were managed back then would have been different as well. But it was an attitude of, you just get on with it. If you don't like it, you can go elsewhere. You can't hack it, sort of thing. But I do think, even being down at Quins and seeing how they work with managing loan players and the younger lads, is a lot better than what I remember it was back in the day. But it's a difficult one to get right, because clubs that are competing, the first team need opposition to train against, but them guys also need game time, so you can't train against nobody. So it's, where do you get these numbers from, and how do you manage that? Which is, I understand why they did it. It's not they just did it for the sake of it, but it is something that you need to be a bit more smart about. But I think a lot of lads, it ends up turning them off rugby, really. It's especially nowadays, I can imagine young guys going like, I don't have to do this. I can go and drop down the leagues, do it part-time and get a job and not have to worry about my body, or especially with concussions and stuff like that. If you've had a couple of bad head knocks and you got thrown into that situation, a lot more lads these days would be like, I'm not doing that, see you later. Like, not putting my body on the line. So it's definitely something that has improved. But back in the day, it was pretty full on.
Yeah, and you wonder how many players got lost just because they were sick of being a bag boy as well. And it's, as you said, hopefully it's changing. But Mario was at Wasps. He's only 24 now, so he was at Wasps maybe 6-7 years ago. So I think they're probably. There's probably still a little bit of it, but hopefully it's been phased out a lot more, because obviously there's a few more games available as well to get those lads bedded in at the clubs, rather than having to constantly go out on loan and come back. So obviously your Instagram photograph is, I'm pretty sure, is that you holding the Calcutta Cup. How was How was the call up? How when you first got the Scottish call up? How did that emotionally feel? And then as a Scotsman to lift in the Calcutta Cup as well, that must be a pinnacle of being a Scottish player.
Yeah, that is exactly right. That's the stuff that you dream of when you're mucking about and you're doing, you're picking it through the post, or you drop goal when you're younger. You're saying this is to beat England. That's just the way it is. No offence to English people, but that's just the way it is being Scottish. No. So first of all, the call up was surreal in the terms of, I went from getting released at Irish, basically 3 months living back home during COVID, thinking getting a contract anywhere is not looking likely here, because rugby's knackered the world's knackered at the minute. Like, COVID's really bad. People obviously are losing family members, all this sort of stuff. So I don't think getting a new scrum half signings on anyone's priority list at the minute. Never mind when they can start training, when the game, like, what's it going to look like? Is rugby going to survive this? A lot of teams struggled financially and needed bailouts from government loans and stuff. So that was a stressful time. And then go to Quins. They would play Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, because they needed to finish the games that they cancelled the season before. So it was a real intense block of games. So I knew that I was going to play. I was going to get a chance. So it was myself, Danny Kerr, and Martin Rundajo, Argentinian 9. So I was like, pretty hard competition, but they're going to have to rotate. Them guys were older than me, so I thought that might be on my side in terms of get a bit more minutes. So I went in there, luckily got an opportunity, and out of the 9 games that we played in that short block, I played 7, and I played really well. Mainly down to the fact that I'd lost like 10 kgs of like pure just fat during that couple of months where I was back home training. I just really, the realisation of my rugby career being over, I was like, you've sort of took the mick a bit here, and I was always a bit heavier. My diet wasn't particularly good. Liked going out for pints after games. Wasn't the best in the gym. So that sort of realisation, right, if I do get a contract somewhere, I'm going to be in really good nick and I'm going to be good to go because I'm going to need to be good to go. So I did that, and that was great. So rugby was a lot easier for me in terms of getting around the pitch, support play, managed to score. I think I scored 5 or 6 tries and then 7 games, and they were all just from running support lines and being there. And obviously playing in a team that was, at that time, was better than Irish, and also were playing a style of rugby where it was a lot more free flowing and offloading and stuff like that, and basically playing with better players that were going to make line breaks, and I can basically get tries off the back of them. So I did that, but I was living out of bags because I'd put all my stuff into storage. I didn't know where I was going to be in the world, never mind in England or whatever, and it was a nightmare. So I moved all my stuff out of storage. I was living in Twickenham, moved it all out in storage, and then I ended up signing for Quins, and I was like, I just kept the same flat and everything. I could have stayed in the same place. I would have saved myself a bit of money. So I had to get all my stuff out of storage, moved into a different place in Twickenham, and I'm still waiting for my bed and stuff. So I had a mattress there, and I was literally sitting on my mattress in my room, and the phone rings, and it's Gregor Townsend, and I was like, right. And I'd had a lot of these conversations early on in my career when I was 21, 22, and it would always, you're in contention, you're doing well, keep working on this, do that. And I would always get the second phone call, you've just missed out, unfortunately, and I'd be, So then they probably stopped happening when I was about 23, 24, when we'd moved into the championship and we were doing a bit like that, and I wasn't playing as much as well. But then to get the second phone call, I was like, it's going to be the same thing, innit? I knew it. I was just sitting there like, it's going to be the same. And he's like, I'm delighted to say that, you're going to be involved for the autumn. We've got one game for the Six Nations to finish against Wales, and then the autumn after it. And I was like, it's amazing. He's like, you put in loads of hard work. You've done really well. Friends, it's been a good move for you. Can't wait to get you into camp or whatever. And I sat there and I was like, couldn't believe it. But then also I was like, right, I've got to go and do this now. Like, I've got to go into international camp. What's that going to be like? The standard's going to be a lot higher. Am I good enough for that? All the sort of questions that are going to pop up. So it was really good that I knew a lot of the guys already through age groups or playing against them. And Scotland's like a small sort of nation in terms of, especially in rugby, it's a really small pool of people. Like, you'll know friends of friends of other people. So going into camp wasn't as intimidating in that sense, but that intensity of training stuff was next level. It was all indoor on a 4G complex, which is the Orium, which is out at Heriot-Watt University. It's a really cool setup, but it just meant that everything was so quick. And luckily I was fit and I was good to go, but it was next level. To think back, if I did get called up when I was 23 or whatever, and I was a podgy little nine, I would not have lasted. I would have struggled big time. So, to go into camp, that was class. And then, the Calcutta Cup was by far my highlight of my career coming on. I remember it was like the last 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so, and the team manager turns around and says, like, Steele, get warm, and I'm also sitting there like, tight, are you sure? Like, are you sure about this? And then once you get into it, it was good and played well, and it was just closed out the game because we were winning. It was a lot of box kicks and sort of management and tackling and stuff like that. But that relief of doing that, and just it was more just the realisation of, like, my last couple of months have been mental, like all over the place, like thinking, am I going to even have a job in rugby, to lifting the Calcutta Cup, where I thought there was no chance of me ever playing for Scotland at that stage when I was 27. I was like, it was just so much to deal with. And I remember being we got a chartered plane back. You know, obviously it was still COVID, so there was like no one around and stuff like that. And we were just on this plane, and Finn Russell's got like the boombox on one shoulder, and he's like going down the aisle with all the drinks and stuff. He's basically poured out all the drinks. I'm having the best time ever. And I was just sitting there. I was like, my rugby career ends tomorrow. I'd be happy. That's what I was sort of thinking. I was like, I'd be happy because this is just. I never thought this was happening. So that was pretty cool. But then it's so quick. It's like come Monday, Tuesday, you're back in. And that's pro sport. It's like you're back in, there's a new challenge, that's done. It was great while it lasted, but we've got this game coming up. So I think it's a good thing and a bad thing about it. It's quite nice once we're finished now to look back on them sort of moments and really enjoy them. But at the time, it's you enjoy them for a short period, and then it's like, right, well, if you turn up on Monday and you have a crap session, you might not get picked for the weekend, and it can change so quickly. So that's how it keeps you on your toes. But yeah, that was definitely the highlight.
I was going to say that must have made the decision to retire a little bit easier, knowing that you'd managed to do that in a Scotland shirt. Couple of questions just to finish off. Who is the best player you've ever got to play rugby with?
In terms of individual like brilliance, I would say like watching and training and in games, it would be very tight between Finn Russell and Marcus Smith for different reasons. Because Marcus' running game and ability to just sort of, if everyone else isn't doing that well, playing that well, he can just get the ball and be like, right, I'm doing it myself, and just go. And watching him in training is a joke. Like you see it obviously in games when he gets the ball and dances around, chips it over, goes through and all that kind of stuff. But like on training, if he doesn't do one of them a training session, you'll go like, oh, he's a bit off it today. Like these moments of like pure magic, and just it's usually if you get like a back against a forward and he'll do a goose step and make him look silly, but anyone in that team would be opposite Marcus and they'd be like shitting themselves like, oh god, he's going to do me here, like, and you don't know which way he's going to go, and he's so quick and elusive. And yeah, so in terms of that, him. Ben, in terms of his skills, his decision making, how smart he is, it was actually really interesting seeing him during camp. He would do absolutely nothing in the gym, which wouldn't surprise you. Like walk around, not asked. He'd do a bit of rehab stuff that, like, that was the bare minimum that the sort of S&C coaches would make him do. Like, right, at least do this bit. You can back off all the rest. He wouldn't do that. He'd come up to training with like his laces undone, and he would just. It's like not about the skill and execution. It's like he would dummy to throw like a ball over the top, so then the winger sort of like holds off to go wide. Then he would like dummy to kick it in behind. Winger drops back, and then he would throw it across. And like the wingers, I remember his Duhan was literally like up, forward, back, down to a stage where he like fell over on the floor, and Finn's there like, I've got you on a string, mate. I've got you on a string. I'm just playing with you. And he would do that to loads of guys, like no look stuff as well. But the really interesting bit was going into the team room, and he'd always be sat down at a laptop. And I sort of sat there, and you could sort of get not ripped apart, but if I sat down, I just was like, right, Finn, tell me what you're looking at. I don't care how like nosy or how geeky this sounds. I want to know what you're looking at when you're looking here. And he's like, right, like taking the piss a bit, right, Steele, I'll show you. I'll show you what exactly. I'll show you how the magic happens and all this sort of stuff. So he sits me down, and he's like, looking at, we were playing against France in the last game of Six Nations, and he was watching Damien, was it Pinot, the winger? Big lad. So he's on the left, and he's like, every time that ball goes to the 12 or the certain move, every time it goes there, he takes at least 2 steps tighter every time, regardless if the ball goes out the back or it goes short. He takes 2 steps tighter. And I was like, right, okay, what does that mean? He's like, that means that I know that if I throw that ball 3 meters outside of him, that he's not going to get to that space, and our winger's going to be on it and go. So he's like, I don't even have to look, because I know he does it. He does it every single time. I've looked, and we're talking 2 meters. Like, it's not a lot, but it just, his body angle of going from here to there. He's like, I can just put the ball in that space. I can kick it. I can throw it. Doesn't matter. And he's like, I don't even have to look in the game. And it's like literally like second or third time we've had the ball. off the line out, gets it, blah, 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 and he gets the ball and he's got so much pressure on him and he just like grabs it, throws it without even looking, straight over the top, and they make a line break down there. And I was like, that's the sort of stuff that people don't understand. Like, he's sat there and looked at that and looked through games and footage and known that sort of stuff and analysing what the backfield do and what certain guys do. He does all that stuff, and people would be like, oh, he's just thrown that because he's a bit loose and he's thinking, whatever, I don't care. But he's done it because he's looked and he's done the research. So that was pretty interesting, pretty cool to sort of see. It makes you appreciate him a lot more, sort of thinking, right, well, he actually puts in the work, and his rugby IQ is so smart that he can do these things that you think are a bit just loose and off the cuff, but it's not. He's thought about that. He knows that.
Wow, that must be just madness, seeing it, him telling you it on the laptop and then just executing it because he knew it was going to happen as well.
Yeah, and I was there, like, to have the minerals to do that and just go for it. I was like, you're a different sort of spheres of prayer.
There's a reason.
Like, get into the game, do the basics. That's why
there's a reason you're on £1 million or whatever it is down at Bath, and exactly. And then the last one, who's a player that should have gone on to make it but never quite did, that you played with?
There was a guy that I played with. So I played with him at Dumfries Saints. That's my local team. So I played with him at age groups. Played with him at under 17s, 18s, and 20s Scotland. He was captain of the under 18s, and I think he wasn't captain of 20s, but he played 13. His name was Chris Auld. Played a bit at DMP, Darlington Moden Park, for a bit. Played for them. Played at Carlisle. So he's still played a decent level. And he played at Gala up here when they were good. So he still played at a decent enough level, but he at age group was unbelievable in terms of strong, quick in attack, but his best attribute was defending as a 13. So smart, knew exactly what to do, was unbelievable at chopping people and getting on the ball and jackling. And he went into the Edinburgh setup, so he sort of had the opportunity, but he just got caught in this phase of, like you say, loved going out, moved to Edinburgh, loved going out on the piss. He would be at university and Edinburgh, and what he would do is he would tell Edinburgh that he was at university and would tell university that he was at Edinburgh. So he would just end up having like 3 or 4 days off during the week and would just end up going out all the time. And he was a good looking lad as well, so I'm sure he would have got a lot of attention off the ladies when he was out and about doing these things. So he was one of them that I've not caught up with him in a long time, but it would actually be interesting to hear how he would look back on that and think about it. Some guys that I've played with would be like, that's what I did and I loved it. And, like, I've got no regrets. Other guys might be like, I probably should have maybe had that opportunity, but he was one that he was the best player at our age groups growing up by a mile, and we had a lot of good guys. We had like Johnny Gray, Mark Bennett that played, Adama, Jamie Farndale that play on sevens and stuff like that. Tommy Allen, the Italian 10. Like, we had loads of guys that were really good, and you could probably ask any of them guys what was fulfilled like at that age group, and they'd be like, "Oh, he was the best player by a mile." Yeah.
On that note, I think that's obviously probably the best way to end a typical rugby player that probably didn't quite make it because they've been on the piss instead. So, Scott, I really appreciate your time, mate, and it's great to chat rugby, and I'm really glad I've managed to get your story out there as well. Obviously, from ending your rugby career. No,
I really appreciate it. Great to chat with you. Really enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too boring for the people that do tune in and listen to it. But it's been really good, and hopefully for guys as well that are transitioning or thinking about transitioning. I'd like to say that if they want to get in touch, it's great to have a conversation. My experience might not be the same as theirs. I'm still pretty fresh out of it. It's only a couple of years, but I think it is really helpful just to sort of
chat it through.
Sort of get a heads up about what things that I've went through, what things that other guys have went through. And I think that's the good thing about rugby. We talked about values earlier. There's been loads of people that are willing to have a chat and help out. And I think the more people that do that, the easier that transition piece will hopefully be for guys coming out the game.
For anyone else that wants to keep abreast of everything that we do on Rugby TTL, more chats like this are bound to come in. Just obviously like, follow, subscribe to all the channels we've got, because we've got plenty more to come, and obviously share the love of Scott sharing his time with us as well. So thank you and goodbye.